Hey everyone, this is Liliana Darkangelo from the Nerd Empire, and Alicia's come back to join us.
Yeah, I'm here, you guys. Did you miss me?
But we also have other people.
Do we?
Caesar's here again.
Oh God, he's here. You
I am
guys.
here.
Mike's here, and he's the only one
As
wearing
always, you've got
clothes.
Grim.
And Vincent.
Mike already introduced himself. Cough.
And John.
Our fantastic sound guy is always with us.
Yes, he is in a shroud of secrecy and sound technology.
And actually, we don't see him. We just see a shroud of darkness.
Yes,
And a
Mm.
purple tie.
and a purple tie and knobs and stuff. That's how we know he's doing his job.
It's kind of like the Wizard of Oz, but
Yeah.
without the curtain.
Yeah, just a
He
shroud.
just said he had a curtain. Oh, a shroud.
a
A
shroud.
shroud, not a curtain. Shroud.
There's a difference.
There's
The
a
shroud's much
difference.
more awesome.
So we have some breaking news before we get into our theme of the day, which is comics old and new. Lilith, do you want to start us off with said breaking news?
So as many of you probably remember, we mentioned that SteamCon might not be happening this year because of financial issues, and it has been released today, about an hour ago actually, that SteamCon 6 will not be happening this year. They are having some economic issues,
Some
And-
financial issues.
and they are still trying to pay off SteamCon 5, so trying to post another convention this year kind of doesn't help them financially. They've had about 30 memberships since they posted that, hey, we kind of need help, and so it's not really happening.
Yeah, there's something about trying to raise $15,000 in 29 days. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not exactly viable, especially since, and this is no news to a lot of people who have either visited SeamCon or been a part of that culture in the city, that some people aren't too thrilled with how it's been run in the past and how it's been kind of managed. And it's really no surprise that this has happened, but it is kind of sad. We're really hoping at the Nerd Empire that somebody else will kind of try to fill these shoes and still have a steampunk culture expo or convention in the city and try to kind of take over from here. I wouldn't be surprised that it happens, especially since there's some really great people out here who are really active in the scene, like Rise of Aster. I know my friends are involved in that, as well as some other people. I mean, there's some really great steampunk bands out here.
Abney Park.
And I wouldn't be surprised if, the cultural group in the area kind of bands together and pulls something.
Well, and I mean, it's not for lack of trying. They have tried. They've posted. They've asked for help. They've had so many memberships, and the CD fundraiser project didn't work out. And their fans are banding together and trying to give them ideas to help out. But with 29 days and counting, trying to raise $15,000, they've got to pay off SteamCon 5 and be able to pay for SteamCon 6, and it just does not look like it's going to happen this year.
Yeah. And with the structural integrity of the organization kind of faltering as well with some drama that's been going on there, it's just not going to happen this year.
No. And, if someone puts on a SteamCon convention or steampunk convention, excuse me, go ahead and let us know. We'll promote it, see what we can do. But even if there isn't a steampunk convention this year, who's to say there isn't going to be one next year, whether it be SteamCon or something else?
Yeah.
But they've mentioned that they are no longer a viable organization. They're disbanding and everything. And you can check out their Facebook page and get all the information from there and see what you can do to help them out, or see if you can go ahead and band together with your community and start up a new one.
Yeah.
Which, speaking of new conventions in Bremerton, there is going to be one. We will have all the information up on our page.
What's it going to be called, Lily?
GamCon, something like that.
Yes. We mentioned this before.
GAMCON.
Yes. We mentioned this before in another podcast. I remember
It's
this.
a brand new convention out in Bremerton, Washington. So
My brain parts are working today. It's okay, you guys.
Shout out to B-Town for throwing that on.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm actually kind of surprised, but I'm excited too.
Bremerton's up in their game, you guys.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So to get into the theme of today, we're going to be talking about comics old and new.
Which I'm wearing my Thor. tank
Yeah,
top.
she's in the mood. I am, as always, wearing a Star Trek shirt. It's my weekend uniform. Totally normal, you guys. Totally. But to kind of jump into this, we do have Caesar here today. which we
Hi.
are ever grateful for. He is one of our contributors to our comics on the site. So, Caesar, why don't you lead off talking about comics, old versus new? Do you have a favorite older comic series that's kind of developed into something new that you like or dislike?
Well, the comic that I think I started with, that I actually started with this comic in the 90s, and I was real interested in its style, and so I went back and read the back issues when it first started, and I think a lot of folks will know this comic. It's X-Men. I think, yeah, right?
Yeah.
So,
We got you.
yeah, I think if you just look at the style and the storytelling from, you say, starting in the 60s, and just to see what like the kind of the social turmoil that was going on in the 60s and then bring it all the way up. I think a lot of those issues are still present today,
Yeah.
and I think that still pervades the storylines, even though like the mutants, even though they used to be just like kind of an isolated thing back in the 60s, and now like back in the 90s there was like hundreds and hundreds. It felt like every person was a mutant in the 90s, like, oh look,
Yeah.
there's a superpower and he's a mutant. And then I think it was early 2000s where they depowered almost all the mutants in House of M, and then now it's coming back. So I mean, just from that point of view, I've seen the artwork grow from from the 60s all the way and up. So that's one comic that I can think of right off the bat when you guys asked that question for me.
Yeah. So it's something that you think, out of all the comics that you've read, the stories remained kind of consistently interesting to you, or do you think there's been like some changes? Because I was talking to somebody about it recently, in terms of, I mean, we have like New 52 and all that jazz, but something that they've said that kind of sets DC and Marvel apart has always been that Marvel has consistently tried to kind of have stories that kind of flow from beginning to end. They have a consistent timeline, whereas DC kind of has like one-off stories every once in a while, and there's
Right.
different types of Batman. There's different things going on there, whereas Marvel tries to have sort of a consistent timeline going through it. So in terms of X-Men, do you feel like some of that's been affected over the years, or if there's been some kind of changes that you felt like haven't been so great, based on some of the, I don't know, social changes over the years, because they do try to keep that historical element and what's kind of going on in the world today consistent throughout the comics timeline?
There's obviously parts where I could nitpick, and I can't. I mean, right off the bat, because the '90s X-Men was the one that that I grew up reading, and the one that I saw was like a kind of a misstep is they did a Generation X comic
Oh yeah,
where they tried.
I know.
Yeah.
What you speak of?
Yeah, where I mean, at the moment when I thought it was cool, it's like, oh look, they're putting all the younger teams, and so they put Jubilee with a bunch of like younger mutants, and they split off and did their own school. And then for some reason, like it was okay, but for some reason it didn't fit within the flow of X-Men. And then eventually it got to a saturation point because there was like a cartoon and like more fans were growing. That eventually I felt like there was like 20 X-Men books, and because you had like other teams like X-Force
Oh yeah.
and X Factor, and then you had a team in was it in London called Excalibur, and then you had all these other books that you eventually got to a saturation point where like I can't keep up with all of these books.
Well, and that's what my friend was saying, because we, interestingly enough, when I remember you saying at some point this was going to be a theme, so I was discussing it with my friends on Saturday. He said it was always hard for him to keep up with Marvel, because you felt like you had to be involved in all of the books from all of the different subsets in order to
Right.
know what was going on in all of the other books. And that's something that he enjoyed about DC more, was because you could kind of break off and enjoy these books separately. You didn't
Right.
have to know what was going on in everything else. And it's interesting that you kind of name it as a saturation point, because it does almost become, you're like, okay, well, did you just put out another one? Now I have to go buy this one in order to keep
Yeah.
up.
Exactly.
Does anybody feel like that about Marvel as well? Mike, Vincent, I know you're on the line. Lilith?
I haven't read a whole lot of Marvel recently. I know with DC, when they came out with like the Court of the Owls for Batman and all that, it was nice because you could read each, like Nightwing separately from Batman and Batgirl and all that, but at the same time you were missing key parts to the story. So it would be like, oh yeah, go see Batgirl issue 10 in order to understand where this random Joe Schmo character came from. So it's kind of, as much as you can read them separately, you do have to read them all as they come out in order to understand the full story of what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
But
that's kind of endemic to the whole crossover thing. Because
Yeah.
whereas back in the '90s, it wasn't based on crossovers that all these characters were going on. It was just kind of as part of the regular storyline, this whole world building thing, which DC is trying to do now, but is annoying. But whatever. Like back then, it was just it was kind of endemic to the whole thing. Whereas now they focus on the crossovers, and the crossovers happen so frequently
Yeah.
that's still an issue. So
Well, and
they
I
they
feel
really don't have a good balance right now,
yeah,
or
and I feel
if
like
they ever did.
I feel like in the 90s too, every once in a while you got crossover books that were just like a 3-book part. It was almost like a mini series
Yeah.
within the story. And now it's almost like the crossovers are integral to the story. I feel like they're pushing it a lot further, and I almost feel like they're using it as a necessity to try to build more readership and get more money. It's almost like they found it as a tool that was really successful for them. I mean, I know that what was really successful for Witchblade, for example, was the Tomb Raider crossovers, because it brought in a whole new readership that they didn't have access to originally, because all their other crossovers were based on the Top Cow universe, and this was outside of the Top Cow universe.
And just like DC Universe versus the Masters of the Universe.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, exactly. So they found it to be successful, so they kept kind of like throwing things like that in there, and it just kind of became something where you saw it as a tool that they were trying to utilize, and no longer as this kind of like fun thing that they were doing. And that's what I feel like kind of is happening now in comics with crossovers, is they're just kind of like, oh, we'll throw this in there to try to bring out new readership and to try to bring in more money. And then the old school readers who have been reading for a while, you can almost sense it in the comics when they're doing that. You're just like, okay, well.
Yeah, and it just based on going off the crossover thing, like the big money makers, or at least they try to, because comics has been losing money over the past couple years
Yeah.
because not many people head over to comic shops anymore. And so what like a lot of the major publishers are trying to do are they try to do these big events, right? These big, like, it's gonna affect the whole universe type of thing, and
You have to buy it.
you have to buy it, yeah. And I mean, like, I personally, I think it started with Death of Superman,
Yeah.
and when they decide, like, let's kill off our big character, and it was like a big thing, and even news outlets were carrying it. But then it gets to a point when you kill off so many people and bring them back that, like, okay, it's just another event.
Well, it's like when they
Like,
killed
oh.
off Damian Wayne. They killed him off, and it's like, oh great, look, another Robin just died. What's gonna happen to him?
Right.
Yeah,
Well-
and that's kind of another problem with DC. It's still the same. They do the big event thing, but they're really focused on like character death, and then they stated that they wanted to world build a lot more, and it was really kind of vague. But then they started doing crossovers within like 6 months. So and doing that, and then killing off characters. Like I haven't like confirmed this, but I think I think they said they killed off Two-Face.
Yeah. I heard something about that, but I can't remember exactly if that was like a gossip post or if that was accurate or not. I know that they recently have been posting a lot of comics that they're just being like, oh, we're cutting these, oh, we're cutting this, oh, we're cutting these, oh, we're cutting this, and bringing in place like other things that I don't think necessarily inspire great readers. I don't know. I really wanted to get into, I think it was like Gotham Girls or something that they had or released before the New 52, where it was
Yes.
essentially like following Catwoman and Poison Ivy, and I think they're still trying to do something similar.
Right.
Yeah.
But it was just so shallow in terms of the characters within that book series. I wasn't really feeling anything. And then they have these more, to me, more interesting older stories. I can't remember. One of them in particular was a lead female character, something to do with magic. I can't
Zatanna?
remember. What?
Zatanna?
No, different one. It's like
Oh.
old backstory or whatever, and I was really interested in reading it when they said that they were going to be doing a new 52 version of it. They got 3 books in and cut it. And it's just
Yeah.
that's happening to a lot of the old books, and I don't know whether it's necessarily
Oh,
because
Amethyst.
yes,
Oh,
there you go.
Amethyst, I like it.
There you go. We got this. We're figuring it out. My brain is fully functioning. Um,
There will be at least one person here who can look it up, and if not,
Yeah.
well,
we'll figure it out later. We'll edit it in. You'll just hear John going, "It was amethyst," and that's what we use him for. But
I don't see him denying. You're just like, what?
he's like, "What?" Huh?
Yeah, the shroud's
but
moving. Uh-oh.
but the shroud's moving. You guys, the shroud's moving. But I just find it interesting because it almost breathes into the fact that I think they're focusing on readership that they're getting from the DC and Marvel movies and more attainable and more easy to relate to or more marketable characters
Right.
than the old books.
Well, and that's where my problem with DC is coming in is they're cutting comics, and then they started with the whole villains thing. Now Harley Quinn's got her own comics, which when they first, were looking for the artist for that brought up a whole lot of things because information was left out, and they apologized for it. However, there were issues with that to begin with. I have issue 0. I haven't read it yet, but with DC, they're cutting off certain issues, and I grew up with Nightwing, and now at issue 30, they're cutting Nightwing, and I'm like, okay, why? What is your reasoning for this? Oh, well, we're bringing forth more Batman. Why do we need 17 Batman issues or 17 different titles of Batman?
Because Nightwing was going to
Because-
Chicago and it was a terrible idea.
But you've got shows like Arrow, and they're starting the Flash
Flash.
TV series and all that. And what I don't really, I think that the people running DC and Marvel have realized this, but DC hasn't fully pulled their heads out of their behinds to realize that with the newer generations, in order to get them to read the comics, you have to build comics that people want to read.
Well, and it's building characters that they want to read, not just doing like comic versions based on the TV shows. That's not gonna inspire continual readership.
No.
They're gonna get maybe like one book and be like, oh, it's just like the TV show.
Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah,
reading the exact same plot line.
That
What's
was
the point?
That was my problem when they turned Arrow into a comic. I was like, oh, cool. Yeah, okay, fine. I can watch this on my TV and get much more
Exactly.
entertainment. The Green Arrow comics, after a few issues, I got bored with it. Same thing with Aquaman. Batgirl or Batwoman, I refuse to pick up because I cannot just.
Well, there was that whole drama with the not wanting to make her the character that she was intended to be, and lesbianism
Yeah.
and that issue.
And then the whole Deathstroke thing where they had, I can't even remember his name that was writing it. That issue that went down for like 5 issues. Then he went on ahead and shot himself in the foot, which I giggled about.
Yeah.
But Marvel,
Oh, Scott Lobdell?
huh?
Was it Scott Lobdell?
I don't remember his name. I know a lot of people had so many issues with him, and then he just kind of told DC to go
Well-
F themselves.
Oh,
Snap, snap,
It-
snap.
oh God, what was his name?
Oh,
You'll
it's on the
Liefeld?
tip- it's on
Was
the-
it Liefeld?
Yes, that was his name.
But it's,
Yeah.
There-
Kinetic artwork.
Yeah. But
um,
Marvel, I feel they're actually doing a bit better
they
because they seem to actually be building some stronger female characters, building a bit stronger comic books compared to the newer DC ones that just seem like, oh, look, this looks pretty, here you go, have a nice day, and move on.
Well, I think they're more focused on continuing their content through the movies and the comic books at the same time and having them, work together
Yeah.
and not fight each other. And I think this is something that we're seeing in terms of them putting forth the movie Guardians of the Galaxy, in which my dad was a big Marvel guy. I mean, growing up, I grew up with Batman, but that was the only DC comic that I really grew up with. He was a lot more Marvel. I have all of his old comic collection, which is just rife with Fantastic Four, Spider-Man, X-Men, Thor, all of that. But he never read Guardians of the Galaxy as a big Marvel person. Not a lot of people did.
No, not really.
No.
Not really.
But they're still coming out with a movie for it because it's a continuation of a story that they're trying to develop
right.
in the Marvel universe in comics as well as the movies. They're a lot better about getting those things to work together. And I was really happy to find out the whole God, oh my God, I'm just losing my mind today. I can't remember names for anything. The villain in I'm just
Thanos?
losing it. No, not Thanos. One of the other
Voltron?
movies. No,
No.
not Voltron. We're gonna figure this out. We're gonna do this together.
Which
Talk-
movie?
talk
Which
it out,
movie?
talk
But
it out.
we're gonna talk it out. We're gonna talk it out.
Describe the
Um,
character.
the Asian guy in one of the movies where
Mandarin.
what?
Mandarin.
Mandarin, yes, that Mandarin is actually Mandarin, and he was acting that he was the actor.
Mhm.
They came out with saying that, and I was like, yes, good, because everybody was upset about that. Thank God they were like, yeah, I
Oh,
got this.
Oh yeah,
I'm-
that, I
I'm
mean, that's the
actually-
rumor for the short, right?
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, exactly.
Is,
And I'm like,
is that confirmed? I mean, I don't.
well, we were talking about it with I was talking about it with my friends, and they're
Mhm.
pretty sure that they're like sort of like being like, no, we don't want to confirm this yet, and doing that little like playing footsie underneath the table with the comic book fan, being like,
Right.
not really, but you guys think about that for a second. But I
Uh-huh.
think they are like they're doing that whole footsie thing.
Okay.
I really hope they don't, because I'm a huge fan of Iron Man, and what I loved about that movie that a lot of people didn't see was Mandarin was never really, from what I've seen I don't read many of the comics. I've got the TV series, I've got all the movies, I've got graphic novels there,
Mm-hmm.
and Mandarin was never the huge powerhouse that's out in front trying to kill people. He was more behind the scenes. He used his team in the cartoon series to get the work done.
Yeah.
And that Aldrich Killian was a perfect Mandarin. He just didn't look the part.
Yeah.
He was behind the scenes manipulating everything, getting everything to work exactly how he wanted, but in the end it failed anyway. And that to me was always how Mandarin worked. It was just everyone expected Ben Kingsley to be the Mandarin in the movie.
Yeah. I mean, I'm leaning more towards side. I'm actually undecided because I too, when I saw the movie, was like, wait, that's not. You can't do that with Mandarin. And then
yeah.
I actually kind of appreciated the twist because it was a nice surprise to have in that movie. And that movie I thought was well done. And I know a
Yeah.
lot of people were really up in arms with Mandarin, but I think I was okay with that. I was only mad because he is like a major enemy of Tony, and like it's hard to
Yeah.
bring him back. But at the same time, like to see Marvel just kind of go back on that decision, because if they made a decision that this is the way we're gonna go with Mandarin, and then all of a sudden be swayed and
Yeah.
go back to a
Well, to
It-
my
and it-
sorry to cut you off, Caesar.
Oh,
But to
yes,
my
go ahead.
knowledge, what they were saying about it is that I think they came out with the information, but didn't totally want to confirm it because there were a lot of people who were fans of the Mandarin in the story
Right.
that were upset that they handled Mandarin that way.
right.
I mean, there was a lot of uproar online about
I mean, yeah,
that.
there was gonna be some uproar.
So I think they just wanted to say like, oh, well, you haven't seen the last of Mandarin sort of situation,
Oh,
and then
okay.
it kind of went into the spiral of, oh, well, maybe Kingsley was really Mandarin, and then they're like not really confirming it yet, sort of situation. I think is what's happening. So maybe it's not even Kingsley. Maybe they're going to be getting into the backstory behind
Maybe.
the real Mandarin.
But I mean, don't get me wrong. I loved Osama bin Kingsley. So yeah,
he
that
was pretty epic.
he was pretty epic. He
His
scared me. I was like,
throne.
oh, that dude's a terrorist.
That dude's got it going on.
Yeah.
That's what's up.
The thing that's going to annoy me about that most of all is they killed off all these characters in X-Men 3, but didn't backflip on that, and that was horrible for me. I grew up with X-Men comics. I couldn't get them as often as I would have liked, but they killed off half the team, and
yeah, they
then
did.
turn around and go, "There's no mutant powers anymore." That's not X-Men. That's just that's not X-Men at all.
Yeah.
Not from what I've read. I may be wrong in the expanded
Well-
stuff that I haven't read,
Um,
but
They did eventually kill off a lot of the mutant power people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or at
in
least
the
they
book.
at least they depowered them, and
Yeah,
they were
depowered
just,
them.
They're just
Yeah.
kind of walking around not having
Being
powers.
human.
Yeah.
God, that smells really.
Are you talking about the mutant cure?
yeah, in the third
Yeah.
movie,
I think.
Yeah,
I
that-
found
Yeah.
That
That-
was based on Joss Whedon's comics from X-Men comics, which as a comic I think was fairly popular in the time, but I haven't read them, so I don't really have an opinion.
Caesar.
Well, for the Joss Whedon comic, which, I mean, okay, so we're gonna
The
go.
X-Men
We're gonna go back in time and talk about X-Men 3. What was the name of the third X-Men film? It was
Oh my
X-Men
God.
Last
Last
Stand.
Stand.
Last Stand.
Last
Okay.
Stand.
And I think everybody. I mean, I was excited too because I love Joss Whedon's run on X-Men.
Who doesn't?
Right. And when they heard they were doing that, that particular story, or at least they taking elements of it, I think a
Yeah.
lot of people were very happy, and they were very excited to see what was going to happen. And I think what happened with X-Men: The Last Stand, I think it also happened with Spider-Man 3,
Oh, bah.
is that they just decided to put too much into a movie. I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like they had like execs talking in their ear, you need to add this,
Yeah.
Add the Phoenix Saga.
By the way,
Add the Phoenix Saga.
by the way,
Add all these mutants. Add this.
why isn't there more Jean Grey?
Yeah, right. And so, and this goes back to the beginning when we said oversaturation.
Yeah.
It goes for the same in movies. Like once you oversaturate with like, there's these many cross storylines going on,
Oh, God.
and and there's not enough time to dedicate to actually fully flesh out characters and a story.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna lose a lot of your audience.
Yeah. Which is why, to this day, I still stand by my saying that my favorite comic book series that was put into movies that I think was executed well, that didn't have too much frou-frou exec stuff going on, I think, in my opinion, was Hellboy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that for what it was, which I had at one convention, I was able to actually sit down and talk to Mike Magnola about the movies, and he loves them, but in his opinion, which if you guys haven't seen these, they're amazing, the Hellboy animated movies are his favorite, because they follow direct storylines, and they don't stray from them very much at all. And Grimm's nodding his head. He's like, yes, they're great. Yes, go watch them. Go watch
He
them
loves
right now."
Hellboy.
Hellboy is the shit. Sorry for my French, but he had great respect for the people that he was working on those movies with, and I mean, some people are kind of up in arms about how Ron Perlman was as Hellboy, how he looked as Hellboy,
Right,
and
yeah.
those sorts of things. But yeah, Grim, that face again.
Dude, Ron Perlman was perfect for Hellboy.
Oh no, I agree. Like the people who get grumpy about how he looked as Hellboy, I'm just kind of like, you need to just take a minute.
You need to go watch Beauty and the Beast.
There you go. Go watch that. Have fun. Bye bye. But I feel like those, out of all of the comic book movies that I've watched, have been fairly well executed. I'm also really disappointed that Red Sonja was teased as a movie with Raz
Oh, yeah.
McGowan as Red Sonja, which would have been amazing, and still nothing is happening with that.
Much
And
like
then-
Wonder Woman.
Yeah, well, Wonder Woman stuff might be happening. At least we kind of have hints of stuff from Hollywood. Also, Witchblade movie. That was like in production for the longest time and still is considered in production on IMDb. And I'm just like, what? It's been in production for like 8 years.
Oh yeah.
You know, movie stuff.
Yeah. No,
You know,
Totally
anime in
normal.
the meantime.
it will get me.
You know, but it's because, and this is why I like Marvel, because they're taking their genres into movies, and they're, you know, not as celebrated, not as well known, not as read comics, and still making them into movies to kind of further their books and kind of work in concert with them, whereas other comic companies seem to be running into issues with that.
Well, Grimm's Fairy Tales is turning their comics into a TV series. An
And
animated series, sorry.
Yeah, and Fables is doing a movie, and they have the video game, The Wolf Among Us is out.
We're going to see these before we even see a Wonder Woman. We're going to get a remake of the Fantastic Four, which I would like everyone's opinion on.
Okay, well, here.
Here we go.
Okay,
All right.
give me a minute.
Clear the floor. Clear out, guys. Clear out.
Okay, just so everybody knows, this is my nerdiness. My nerdiness is genetic. My dad, super nerd. I mean, dude's an engineer, read comic books all his life. This is the same man that I was in the middle of reading a Harry Potter book, took the Harry Potter book out of my hands and was like, she stole a lot of ideas from this guy and threw The Hobbit into my hands and was like, you have to read this before you're allowed to read the rest of this series. And this is just my father. I was named after the Thing's girlfriend from Fantastic Four. That's where my name comes from.
Oh.
That is
Interesting.
legit the story of naming me. He wanted to name me Mary Jane, but my mom said no because I would be teased endlessly at school for having that name. So, and John's like, just so you know, the Shroud of Darkness is nodding ever so slightly in agreement. So I was super pumped for the movie to come out, the original. It was wholly disappointing to me and my father.
Mm-hmm.
I did not enjoy it one bit. I felt like they needed to, and this is still drama in the comic universe of fans, the making Alicia a black woman they felt like it was necessary. And I was like sort of okay with it, but her storyline still didn't fit who she was in the story. Like, I'm fine with, you casting her as whomever, but she wasn't Alicia. She just wasn't. And they felt the need to make her an integral part, but she still wasn't that character, regardless of who was cast as her. So I'll be interested to see if they're going to, because Alicia was always an integral part of making the Thing who he was and making him being able to stand who he became.
Well, they did. There was a teaser poster that Flash is black.
Yeah.
So,
So it's just like, I don't understand. And it's not, in no way, I think, or half of the people who come up in arms with this is in no way are they being racist. I think the issue is staying consistent with the story. And I don't think that race plays a part in who Alicia is as a character, but I'm not so sure about,
yeah.
yeah.
When they went on ahead and had Johnny Storm in that poster as black, the first comments I read was adoption. What, Milkman's son? Like,
Yeah,
it's when you have Nick Fury being recast as a black man. That was fine.
yeah.
People got over that fast.
And that's what I'm saying here too. Is that I don't care if Alicia was a black woman. I do not, because it's not in any way integral to her story. My issue was that she wasn't who she was in the comics. She wasn't very well written as
Yeah.
being that important to who the Thing is. But I just don't know where they're going with that whole thing with the new one.
Yeah, that looks like a whole big bubble.
Yeah, especially since they're not going to be a family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're,
And just
Like, what's
as
the
long
point?
as long as they're sticking away from racial stereotypes when they're writing characters and actually writing them as people rather than writing someone as a black man,
Yeah.
that's fine.
Yeah. And
If you
I
can make it
wholly
work
agree
in the
with that.
story, then it's fine. If you screw something up, I mean, they screwed up Nick Fury way before Samuel L. Jackson was cast, because in the 90s, there was a movie of Nick Fury with David Hasselhoff.
I remember that
Oh,
movie. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was on Fox.
I
think.
mean,
I blocked that out for a reason. Thank you for
So-
bringing that back. I'm gonna
So
go.
if they want to cast Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury, I've got no problems.
it was
No.
Samuel L. Jackson. No, it's Jamie Foxx, right? Is it Jamie
No.
Foxx? No, is it?
Samuel L.
Jamie
Jackson.
Foxx is going to be Electro.
That's Electro.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, I am on some page with understanding whom is whom and what movie.
So I do want to go ahead and throw this in there just in case. We are recording at Bedlam Coffee. If at any point a random piano starts playing, it's because we're in a coffee shop.
They've
Um,
got to add atmosphere.
Yeah.
Exactly. We're being serenaded by the coffee
It's
shop.
Seattle, and coffee shops are very important to your daily life. So
We barely get sun. Of course we need coffee.
it's
How else are we
liquid
going to survive?
sunshine.
There we go.
Liquid sunshine.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. And
Yeah.
I think I have problems with Fantastic Four because there is that connection there. So I think I can't be impartial.
Yeah, I could see that because you're named after Alicia, so that makes sense that you would have that. With me, in terms of Fantastic Four, I feel like it's just, I mean, in just reading on the production level in terms of what's been happening with it, it seems like they're just trying to make a movie so they can keep the rights, and that's what.
Oh yeah.
They did that before.
And
They
they've
didn't
done
even
that
release the
before.
movie. They did that with before.
Yeah, and so. Batman
Didn't
and
Fox
Robin-
do that with the Firefly stuff when they went on ahead and,
Oh God.
we're like, oh, we can't
Yeah.
have people that are randomly sitting on Etsy selling Jane hats. No, we own the rights to everything.
So yeah, I think if it's just a way for them to keep property and it's gonna be like a crap movie, then I don't want to see that at all.
I don't want
Well,
another Green
That's what
Lantern.
they also did. Or well, no, this was Sony. It was the Amazing Spider-Man movie.
Okay, but
That was the whole
see,
reason they made that.
that was the reason they made that. But I liked the Amazing Spider-Man
did
better
it-
than Tobey Maguire's
Yeah.
Spider-Man. I'm
Yeah.
just gonna be
Well,
real for a
here's-
second.
Here's my thing with I like the cast of Amazing Spider-Man much
Yes.
better than the original. The only thing with the Amazing Spider-Man was that I mean it was so close to the original Spider-Man trilogy that I didn't need to see another origin story. I would have just liked to see let's start with Spider-Man. That's it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm gonna be interested to see how they handle Gwen Stacy. Cough, cough. No spoilers. But
Wait, something's happened to Gwen Stacy.
There's actually, I have watched people cry. They're
No!
like, no, this can't happen. And I'm like, did you ever read
Read
the
the
comic
comic?
books?
Or
I
did
mean,
you watch Spectacular Spider-Man on
Yeah.
TV? Because that was
Well,
great.
Yeah, exactly. But
I
I
remember
mean,
that one.
I'm glad they're doing that part of the origin story is what I'm saying because
Yeah.
it develops Spider-Man into becoming this glory justice sort of person more so than just kind of dealing with his
Yeah.
his family issues and that sort of thing. When Gwen Stacy leaves this mortal coil, he becomes a lot darker in terms of his personality and in terms of his issues.
Right.
Well,
So
I haven't seen Spectacular Spider-Man, so I don't pretend to have a really strong opinion on that. However, the reason they just ended up doing a reboot was not because they didn't consider doing a continuation of the Tobey Maguire, because Sam Raimi did write up some drafts of that, but he didn't have it up to his level, so he asked them for more time, and they denied it. However, had the series continued, Anne Hathaway would have played the Voltress.
oh god.
Hey,
Interesting.
that would have been cool.
Yeah.
And we're all missing out on that.
Well,
although she
yeah,
did play Catwoman.
I've know because I know I've have some animator friends who are actually working on the Sam Raimi Spider-Man 4 that actually got told that your jobs are done and we're not releasing the movie.
Oh god.
Yeah.
This is just happening left and right in the creative field, though, too. The whole Immortal Games situation, or
Yeah.
Irrational Games situation, not Immortal Games, Irrational Games situation.
Well, they
That's-
finished.
That's beside the point.
Yeah.
But anyway,
So we've discussed movies kind of on Marvel. Let's go on. I did post a trailer for the Arrow TV series that's coming back this month from their mid-season hiatus. And they're bringing in Birds of Prey, Suicide Squad. They threw in Deathstroke. I'm on the fence with this. I really do enjoy all the characters that they're throwing in. However, this is only the second season, and they're already
This
like,
is-
look, Suicide Squad, Birds of Prey.
this is the
Oh my God!
oversaturation
'cause they want-
situation, too. Again,
Yeah.
it's
They want the whole Smallville thing before they've earned the Smallville thing.
exactly. They want to pedal into it a little bit too quickly.
I do love Arrow as a series. I think that they're doing well, but they are throwing in far too much all at once.
Yeah.
If they were to
Well-
do like, Suicide Squad for a season and then Birds of Prey for a season, and with the whole Deathstroke thing, which I do enjoy the whole Deathstroke thing that's going on, and I squeal just a little bit every time I see him. But they're bringing Huntress back, and they've kind of completely
is-
ruined with the whole Black Canary thing. That moment where I'm going, oh, they're finally gonna get to her origin story. No, just
Because
no.
and here's the thing is my husband reads a lot of comics online and through like Comixology and stuff like that. He has, as we will refer to as, non-comic readers in his workplace, and they were like, "Oh, dude, you should watch Arrow," and he's like, "No, I'm not gonna watch Arrow. Do you know why I'm not gonna watch Arrow? Because I don't need to watch Arrow." And he's like, "But it's really good, man. After you get through the first half of the season, you get to see Black Canary's boobs bouncing around all the time," and that's what the
Yeah.
other watchers are going for.
If that's your major
it's-
selling point, there's something wrong.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, that's why they probably haven't gotten to Black Canary's origin story in the show, is because the executives are like, "Oh no, it's good enough. Everybody's happy with their boobs bouncing around. It's fine."
But they're bringing back Huntress, and I mean, just why? It's always going to be that nagging thing in my head. As much as I love Sarah as a character, I don't love her as Black Canary because Laurel is Black Canary. So it's that nagging feeling where I'm like, she's a good character.
Wait,
if
Laurel
she-
became Black Canary?
in the original, yeah.
Oh,
Her
okay.
name was actually Laurel, not Sarah.
Oh, okay. I was like,
No,
Oh, different way of like-
we'll pedal back there for a second. for you.
pedaling back in the actual comics, Laurel was Black Canary, not Sarah. So the fact that they still have Sarah playing Black Canary, it's that nagging feeling in the back of my mind that makes me want to punch the producers and the people writing this stuff.
It would be too complicated for them to
Yeah.
figure something out.
The
They
moment-
dug themselves a little bit of a hole there.
Well, the problem that I really have is they had the perfect opportunity when they had oh god, what was her name? Was it not Talia? When they had Ra's al Ghul's whatever.
her name's Talia al Ghul.
Was that Talia? I thought-
you got
okay.
it. You got it.
I thought that was Talia.
You're good.
I was second guessing myself. So many names.
Don't just go with your gut.
When she came in and the whole thing with Sarah and she's gonna die, I was like, yes, they're finally going to kill her because that would be the perfect opportunity for Laurel to come in, take the mantle, and move on with the story. And they didn't, and she's still alive. And I'm like, that was
Well, Talia doesn't get much done anyway.
well, no, but I mean, it was that window that they had to fix that problem, that they haven't fixed. Instead of fixing that problem, they're like, look, we're going to throw in Birds of Prey and we're going to hint at Suicide Squad and Harley
okay.
Quinn.
The thing with the Birds of Prey situation too is just they already had that show. It's done. It's
Yeah.
over. It's gone and past. Please don't try to
In
bring
fairness, it
back.
was like 13 episodes.
Yeah.
But it
still.
was still a show.
With
don't need-
they had Mark
It was a
Hamill as the
mini
Joker.
series. We'll call it a mini series. It justifies that much.
Yeah.
Whether it's good or
wasn't a
bad
miniseries.
is-
It got canceled.
We'll call it a mini series, just out of being polite.
It was there. It existed. I just don't know if it's entirely necessary to bring them back for the Arrow show.
They created Flash, and then he just kind of went poof, and then they're like, "Look,
He's
Flash
got his
TV's
own show.
Yeah, now he's got his own show, and I'm like,
By
but
the
then,
by.
so are we gonna do the same thing with everyone else? And suddenly there's gonna be a Suicide Squad show because of Arrow? Like, I don't understand what the producers are doing now.
Caesar is shrugging, confused.
I mean, I don't watch the show, but from what it seems like, just based on your guys' conversation, it seems like am I assuming the story is kind of problematic? Is it? I mean,
The story,
how's the writing? Is the writing?
the writing is good. I enjoy the writing. It's just they're
the
cramming.
writing's good
They're just
for
cramming
the
in the-
most part.
Are they cramming in the characters? I feel like they're cramming in characters
Just
to-
because.
to have
Yeah.
a name. Like, ooh, look, it's gonna be this, and I
Well,
think
and
that's bringing.
They definitely are like.
Yeah.
And that's bringing in
in
just
my
to bring
in
in
my
the-
last comic
Yeah.
review they did. Or it had Shrapnel in it, and Shrapnel is the character that Sean Marr was playing. So I mean, even with all of the Suicide Squad, the Harley Quinns, and all of that going on next season, they're still planning on having regular characters come back as supervillains in that way.
Oh, I
Like
see.
Sean Marr is going to be a freaking bulky Terminator thingy later.
As long as
So-
they don't have the crappy costume from the actual Suicide DC 52, I'm fine.
Right.
I'm fine with that Harley Quinn, but not the costume.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. So I mean, yeah,
I
it
think
seems
they
like they're
changed the
just-
costume for
they're doing
her
this
series.
just to bring in all the comic book geeks. Like, well, look what's gonna come on the show next.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. They're trying. I think that they're desperately grasping at more watchers who are in the readership,
Mhm.
as opposed to, because at first it was just kind of like, oh, Arrow, what's
I think a lot of this is the Avengers' fault.
Yeah, I kind of
'Cause-
agree.
So DC can
Because
blame
like
Marvel.
even Amazing Spider-Man, again, I haven't seen it, so I'm just going to talk about the trailer for the next one, which I think should have I think they shouldn't have done the Amazing Spider-Man 2. I think they should have done like the Spectacular Spider-Man and did a different adjective for each movie, but that's a whole other thing. But apparently, what they're trying to do is they're trying to do the Sinister Six,
Yeah, that's the rumor.
and why? It is the second movie, and you're going to have 6 villains, which another thing is that
Hopefully, only the
the
second movie.
number of villains doesn't necessarily mean it's gonna be bad. Like
Mhm.
consider the Batman movies had like loads of characters too, loads of villains too. But I mean, the Sinister Six is kind of it's the second movie, and he doesn't need to have an Avengers scale thing. And then there's all this talk about each of them getting their own movies, so they're gonna they're making a Spider-Man cinematic universe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think that's the goal, right? Just to make. I'm not sure. I mean, I think that's the problem with a lot of DC properties. I think that's one of the reasons. We don't know how they're building their universe in terms of.
Well, yeah,
TV and movies,
they're
right?
running kind of by the seat of their pants right now because they lost the Christian Bale aspects because he was like pretty much like, I'm done, bye.
Right.
And then they were like, oh well, we have to recast because now we've got to grasp at straws. We want to have the same success that Marvel's been having with their series of movies because Marvel was working towards the very beginning, working all of these movies into Avengers movies and stuff like
Right,
that.
mhm.
And
So
now
they
they're
get
like,
Joss Whedon.
and now DC's like, oh shit.
Well, maybe they should have held on to Joss Whedon while they had the chance, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
but- well.
Although their DC's animated movies are pretty good.
No, I agree.
That is true.
I agree
Although-
with that statement.
One thing that's gonna bug me is they're making a Damien movie before they made a Nightwing movie.
Uh huh. I will never forgive them for that one.
Yeah, they're well,
No.
and it has a lot to do with them grasping at straws and kind of being like, okay, well, we have Spider-Man now, so what if we do this, and then we can do this, and then if we do this, but will somebody be angry? No, it's fine. Let's just do it.
Yeah.
Is essentially what's happening.
No, it is, and so I mean, I would like. I mean, you can't go back and undo history. I think the best DC world building I have seen is back in like the Bruce Timm Paul Dini universe with the Batman animated series,
Oh yeah.
all the way up
Yeah.
until
Oh,
Justice
yeah.
League. I think
Oh.
everybody loved those shows, and they were all
Well,
connected, and they had their own.
Still, and
yeah.
still, the 90s, the WB Batman animated series, even going off that, even I did not like, what was it called? Just like the Batman, but
Oh, yeah, that
Oh,
wasn't
God,
part
no.
the
yeah.
Batman
I did love
Brave-
that. I liked that show.
I did. Oh, it was
Uh-oh.
awful.
Uh-oh.
Well,
Hey.
Uh-oh.
But do you know what was good that came after that was the Batman Brave and the Bold, which was like
Oh, yes,
old
yes,
school
yes, yes.
Adam West. Oh
Yep.
my god,
Well-
that show is hilarious. But
mhm.
I mean, like it's just they can't take the success where they're given as DC, and they're just kind of like, well, we have to compete with Marvel, so now we have to put out these movies.
Yeah, and,
Well, and-
the new Batman show where it's basically based on the Christian Bale movies with changes like
Oh, God.
how Katana is the Robin, and then Alfred is like ambiguously younger. And it's terrible.
we just won't speak of this ever.
Well,
this conversation.
Don't worry, that show was canceled, I believe. So
No, they thought it got a second season.
Oh.
did it? You sure? 'Cause
I heard about that. I'm
you
looking
pretty
this
sure
up.
because they all of a sudden just stopped showing episodes, and that kind of tells me that
It's probably
Well, the
not
season ended, I think.
their-
no, the season didn't end.
Well, then
Because I was watching that show, and all of a sudden there was no more episodes.
Here's
And
what
it's-
we'll
Oh,
do:
really?
is
Yeah.
we'll research it and we'll post it up on our site with the episode,
Yeah,
so
we'll
people can
figure
figure it out.
We'll figure it
yeah.
out. But I think we've exhausted.
Yeah,
I-
No, they said that it was going to come back in January 2014, but it did not do so.
Yeah, we're gonna wrap this up. I do want to just touch on one last point. I do have to agree with Alicia though that I do think that DC is just trying to get the readers into their shows and
Yeah.
movies because that's kind of where it's lacking.
Yeah.
Where Marvel's actually kind of, I feel, doing that right.
Yeah.
But we have kind of pretty much beaten this horse to pudding.
Yeah, we've turned it into glue.
Yeah.
Shroud of Darkness is nodding his head.
Yes, he is.
So, for all of our listeners, if you have any input on this, go on ahead and let us know. Just to give you guys a heads up, April 30th, we will be releasing the brand new site. We are working hard. There's blood and sweat and tears.
My fingers are numb.
I think Alicia's kind of going to curl up in a ball and rock back and forth and
It'll
just.
be okay.
Yes.
We're probably going to have like a massive party once it's all done. Because,
Release party.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's a rave, you guys.
Woo! But we do need some help. If you guys have any input for our site, let us know. If you would like to contribute, go on ahead and shoot us an email, nerdvanawebcast@gmail.com. That email will no longer be active as of April 30th. But go on ahead and send us your ideas, input, questions, concerns, complaints, how much you love or hate us.
It's okay if you guys don't like me. I'll live.
Who's the next person we're going to sacrifice? I mean, we don't do that. No, not at all.
Wasn't that the Contributors Month thing?
That's actually going to happen once we get the new site up.
Oh, so you're saying there's not going to be sacrifices?
Well, no, not yet.
No, not yet. But yeah, I think we'll call it a cast. My name is Alicia Ish.
I'm Liliana Darkangelo.
I'm Caesar.
I'm Mike.
I've been Grim.
And Vincent.
And John.
Thank you so much, you guys, and we'll be talking to you again soon.
Have a good one, nerds and nerdettes.